The Ottoman Empire did not begin with marble palaces, silk robes, or the roar of massive siege cannons. Over 7 centuries ago, it was born in the freezing mud of Anatolia on the backs of starving ponies. Turgut spits wind-blown grit from his teeth. His right thumb is a mass of cracked calluses from the relentless pull of a horn and sinew composite bow. He is a light cavalry archer of the Nicaea tribe. Turgut smells of horse sweat, raw leather, and wood smoke, lacking any trace of imperial ambition. The year is 1301, exactly 768 years before our present day. Mongol warlords reduced the Islamic Golden Age to ash in Baghdad. This collapse drove thousands of desperate Turkic refugees westward into the bitter frontier. Now, Turgut and his people are caught in a brutal tactical trap. Behind them is the relentless Mongol terror. Ahead lies the heavily fortified stone border of the Byzantine Empire. How long can desperate men with mere bows defy the armored legions of ancient Rome? Their daily reality is not grand conquest, but shivering survival. Finding winter grazing lands for their shrinking herds means battling along the Roman frontier for every single blade of grass. Turgut faces a terrifying ultimatum. His people must either freeze and starve as forgotten nomads in the harsh Anatolian mountains, or carve a new homeland from the remnants of a fading superpower. Turgut receives no royal salary in silver coins, fighting instead a desperate struggle where combat buys vital winter pastures. The Byzantines cower behind the towering stone walls of Nicaea, ruled by isolated local lords. Lacking iron siege engines to shatter these stone leviathans, the Nomads weaponize hunger. How do you topple an impenetrable fortress with nothing but horses and arrows? You burn the harvest. His life depends entirely on a recurve composite bow. Gripping the taut string with a polished bone thumb ring, Turgut looses heavy shafts at a dead gallop. The rules of nomadic engagement are absolute and unforgiving. Never fight heavy infantry in a static melee, but strike the supply caravans and target the pack mules. Then, vanish into the foggy valleys before imperial guards can react. They are suffocating the Byzantine frontier, one ruined grain silo at a time. This relentless strangulation finally forces the emperor to act. By the spring of 1302, exactly 724 years ago, a chilling rumor ripples through the camps. The rulers in Constantinople have unleashed a professional relief army. Heavily bolstered by fierce Alan mercenaries, they intend to erase the nomad threat entirely. The ultimate paradox looms. Turgut's desperate starvation tactics have worked flawlessly. They have worked so well, they have just drawn the full, terrifying attention of the imperial war machine. How do you forge a disorganized rabble of starving nomads into a unified force? You do not use iron, you use prophecy. Turgut sits close to a sputtering campfire, the Anatolian night biting through his wool tunic. He listens to the hypnotic chanting of the mystic dervishes. These spiritual brothers form the spine of the camp, forging swords and morale alike. The dervishes whisper of a terrifying vision. They say their leader, Osman, slept in the home of a revered holy man and experienced a profound dream. A moon sank into his chest, and a colossal tree erupted from his navel. Its massive branches surged upward, casting a heavy shadow over the entire world. To modern ears, it sounds like a convenient myth. To Turgut, shivering in the dark, it is an absolute divine mandate. God has given them the earth. This psychological weapon transforms chaotic raiding into a focused blockade. But does a dream stop an armored cavalry charge? Turgut is about to find out. It is July of 1302. General George Muzalan is marching toward the coastal plain of Bapheus. Muzalan leads 2,000 professional Byzantine soldiers, heavily bolstered by fierce Alan mercenaries. Osman's cornered light horsemen have nowhere left to run. They are pinned between the unforgiving sea and the encroaching imperial war machine. The tension in the nomad camp is suffocating. Men tighten their leather saddle girths in absolute silence, preparing for the inevitable clash. As the heavy morning fog finally burns off the coast, the rising sun catches a terrifying gleam. The Byzantine vanguard has arrived. Turgut raises his bow as the imperial banners pierce the mist. Faith is about to meet disciplined Roman armor. It is July 27th, 1302. The air above the plains of Bapheus is thick with the choking stench of horse sweat and trampled dust. Turgut sits atop his restless mount, his bowstring humming faintly in the hot wind. He is one of 5,000 light cavalrymen gathered under Osman, watching the Byzantine forces lock their heavy wooden shields across the plain. They form a terrifying wall of iron, designed to crush this nomadic force into the dirt. Turgut grips his reins, waiting until Osman finally raises the call. Digging his heels into his pony, Turgut erupts into a thunderous gallop. They do not charge blindly into the bristling spears, instead executing the ancient snare of the steppe. Deploying the feigned retreat, Turgut rides parallel to the Byzantine lines. He uses his bone thumb ring to loose a relentless storm of heavy arrows that find vulnerable gaps in the Roman armor. The shafts pierce mail and strike deep, causing Muzalan to scream for a counterattack. The general is desperate to use his Alan mercenaries to flank the Turkish swarm. But what happens when paid fighters realize imperial gold is not worth dying for? The battlefield instantly devolves into tactical chaos as the Alan mercenaries hesitate. Seeing the sheer ferocity of the nomadic swarm, they refuse to engage alongside the Byzantine regulars. Turgut watches the imperial line fracture, dropping his bow to draw his curved blade. He plunges his horse directly into the buckling infantry, where shields splinter under the weight of starving men fighting for survival. The discipline of ancient Rome shatters, forcing Muzalan into a humiliating sprint back to the fortress of Nicaea. Turgut sits on his panting horse, covered in the dust of a fractured empire. The Roman vanguard is broken. The dust of Bapheus settles, but the real suffocation has only just begun. Turgut does not ride toward the towering gates of Constantinople. He does not need to. By breaking the last mobile field army, the Nomads strip the empire of its shield. The lush Bithynian countryside lies completely defenseless. Turgut and his fellow riders return to their agonizing work, severing imperial supply lines and watching the smoke rise. The great Byzantine fortresses of Nicaea and Nicaea are now nothing but gilded cages. How do you kill an armored giant? You simply close its throat and wait. Osman's prophetic dream physically takes root in the fertile soil. The disorganized Kai tribe ceases to be a desperate band of freezing refugees. They become a unified state. For the isolated Byzantine garrisons, the bitter winter of 1302 brings a terrifying realization. No relief army is coming. The men inside the stone walls are forced to boil their leather harnesses just to survive. Meanwhile, Turgut's people finally fatten their herds on conquered imperial pastures. The nomadic blockade transforms into a permanent stranglehold. It will soon birth a dynasty spanning 3 continents. Today, in 2026, the Bithynian plains are unrecognizable. The ancient stronghold of Nicaea is permanently buried beneath the concrete sprawl and roaring highways of modern Izmit. The fallen Alan mercenaries and the ash of the Byzantine harvest are gone. But the echo of those starving ponies remains. It is a quiet, creeping rot at the foundation of every modern superpower. It serves as a chilling reminder that deep within the geopolitical machinery, beneath the marble and the iron, there is always a desperate man in the freezing mud. And he is waiting for the empire to close its eyes.